Hillary Clinton is the big loser and Dr. Ben Carson is the big winner in the latest Fox News poll. The Democratic frontrunner's favorable rating hits a new low of 38% in a national survey of voters in both parties. That's down 7 points from May. Some 56% of voters now say they have an unfavorable opinion of Clinton. Meanwhile, Dr. Carson now has the best net favorable rating among all voters. Some 46% say they have a positive view of Carson. That's up 20 points since May. And when it comes to Republican voters, Carson is way ahead of the pack. He has a net positive rating, favorable over unfavorable, of plus 52. Marco Rubio is plus 35, Donald Trump is plus 12, and Jeb Bush is plus 1, meaning as many Republicans view him positively as negatively. With that, time to bring back our panel. George, where does this Republican race stand right now?
Well, if you believe, as I think it is reasonable to believe, that the Trump phenomenon has passed its apogee. His whole theory was, I'm a tough guy. He's now seems like a whiner and a crybaby trying to, wants the government to crack down on Fox because some bad words were used about him, wants to sue makers of T-shirts that are rude to him. I mean, it just doesn't radiate strength any longer. I think the net favorable, unfavorable that you just cited is very important because there are only 4 with some significant net favorables. 2 of them, Carson and Fiorina, are probably not going to be nominated. The other 2 are Rubio and Cruz, and we could see in the net favorables there the shape of the race to come.
Let me just say that the battle between George Will and Donald Trump clearly continues. Donald Trump also spoke to the Values Voter Summit this week, where he took off after Senator Marco Rubio. Let's look at what happened.
You have this clown, Marco Rubio. I've been so nice to him. I've been so nice. I've been so nice.
Yep, they booed him. Michael, do you agree with Brother Will that the Trump campaign is past its apogee, is losing some of its steam?
Well, I don't know. Who knows with Donald Trump? What you had a month ago in the Fox News poll, 52% of voters supported one of the 4 outside candidates, Trump, Carson, and Ted Cruz. It's now up to 62% in the latest Fox News poll. And so I think the basic contours of the race continue. This is an inside versus outsider race. And I think one thing that might end up helping Ted Cruz is actually that the House Freedom Caucus, these conservatives in the House, were able to take down John Boehner. It shows that there are people in Washington, D.C. who can fight. There are people in Washington, D.C. showing that kind of outsider impulse. And I think that's something that's going to, in the end, help Ted Cruz.
Is he your candidate?
No, I don't have a candidate. But, you know, Ted, Marco, Jeb Bush was exciting. But we need somebody who's an outsider and somebody who's going to come and look a party in the eye that is in the pocket of big business and say it's time for us to fight for conservative voters.
Then there is Hillary Clinton, who I think it's fair to say had another bad week, especially with news that the FBI has apparently recovered some of the so-called private emails, 30,000 private emails, that she said she had deleted from her private server. And despite her claims, there were reports that the State Department didn't know that she had a private server. She was asked about that after a meeting at the Des Moines Register. Here she is.
You're telling me something I don't know. All I know is what I have said. And what I have said is it was allowed. The State Department has confirmed that.
And she just can't seem to shake this, can she?
No, and I mean, it really is going to stick with her for the entire campaign in one form or another. Certainly through the end of this year, there's the monthly email dump from the State Department. We're going to have another one of those on Wednesday. And just as an issue, it has attached itself to her. And no matter how many times she says what I did was allowed, what a lot of people are hearing, and I think your poll bears this out to some degree, is people are hearing, what? Didn't she do something bad? I mean, it really doesn't get a lot more. There's a lot more depth to it than that, and the perceptions of a lot of Americans.
And there keep turning out to be these emails, like she said that she didn't start the private email until March of 2009. Now there's a bunch of emails that have come, conversations she was having in January with David Petraeus. So, I mean, it just feels like it never ends and that she hasn't told the full story.
Well, and every time there's one of these tiny little moves of the needle and some small new thing comes out, it there's a perception that, well, wait a minute, why haven't they just ripped the Band-Aid off here and gone and told us everything there is to tell? I honestly have no idea how much there is to tell, or what the real explanation for the fact that these particular emails that were just discovered weren't discovered earlier. Could it be a perfectly innocent explanation?
How much concern about the fact? I mean, that's maybe a little shift, but when you find out that the FBI has recovered 30,000 or some of the 30,000 private emails, that opens up a real possibility of a can of worms.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a real area of potential risk for her, because presumably some of those emails go to the many other kinds of things that Hillary Clinton is and was and did, right? She was a named part of a family foundation that did work around the world. She was a former and probably future political candidate. She was a longtime connected Democrat with friends across the party and going back decades with whom she communicated as anyone might. But the fact that she was doing it all mixed up with her work email is now a potential area of further scrutiny.
With all due respect to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, I don't think there's any question that the most memorable moment of the week here in Washington certainly was when Pope Francis walked down the main aisle of the House in his white robe. I love this picture looking down on him there. To urge Congress to work together for the common good, and his message could not have been more simple.
Do unto others as you will have them do unto you.
The golden rule. Juan, everybody applauded, both sides of the aisle, but is there any chance that this could somehow lessen the partisanship, break the fever in Washington?
You are such an optimist, Chris.
I asked the question.
Well, no. I mean, politicians will use religion and the Pope as wedge issues when it's helpful to them. They dismiss it when it's not helpful. In general, what we saw here, I think, is the golden rule. Let's work together. Let's have some comedy, some unity. Let's get something done for the people of the United States and the world. And what you saw in terms of response from many of the Democrats was, oh, you know what, typically we've distanced ourselves from the Pope on the abortion issue, gay rights, but now we feel more welcoming and more embracing of this Pope. On the Republican side, it was the other response, which was, you know what, I think it was Jeb Bush who said on climate change, the Pope is wonderful, but he's not a scientist. And on immigration, which was his #1 issue, you can see that the Republican base is just out of sync with what the Pope has to say. You know, about 22% of the United States is Catholic. We've had one Catholic president, Kennedy, one Catholic vice president, Biden, and I'm just astounded that, in fact, we have, as a nation, so embraced this Pope on this visit. It's not been the historical record in this country.
George, what struck you about the Pope's visit?
Well, the fact that he was bold in intervening in what he knows is a very divisive issue in this country on immigration. I happen to think he's right, but I also think it's problematic to have a faith leader of any persuasion and of any origin to intervene as forthrightly in an American debate. The net effect of this will be, I think, approximately zero.
The Pope's message was fantastic, and I think there are deep differences between the two parties in terms of how we can best serve and lift people up of poverty, and that's not something that we should be ashamed of. There are philosophical differences between the parties.
Thank you, panel. See you next Sunday.